Hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Hope everyone's having a great day. Welcome to our Developer Experience live stream. What's new for May 2025? It's been a bit of time since we had our last one, so we have tons of great updates for you guys. And yeah, before we kick things off, I do want to know where you guys are joining from. So I see that Paul Gibbs has already said hello from Seattle. So hi, Paul. So yeah, go ahead and drop where you're coming from. And as you guys are doing that, we're going to go ahead and go around and introduce ourselves. So I'll go first. My name is Courtney Yato. I'm a developer advocate on the developer experience team here at Esri. I live in Alexandria, Virginia, which is really close to Washington, D.C. And we are each going to say a fun fact as well. So my silly little fun fact today is that today is National Have a Coke Day, at least here in the US it is. So I have this is zero sugar Coca-Cola. Time to crack it open. All right. Happy Have a Coke Day. And with that, I'm going to pass it to Raul.
Hello, everyone. My name is Raul. I'm also a developer advocate here at Esri. I have been working for Esri for 11 years now. I'm based in Spain. My fun fact is that recently I bought a 3D printer, and today I'm printing some spools, some keychains. So it's back there, and if you can see it, having some fun. Soon I will be printing some maps. So
some maps.
Some maps, 3D maps. Yeah. So you can touch. Okay. With that, I want to hand over to Anita.
All right. Thanks, Raul. So I'm Anita. I'm on the developer experience team with all of these people here. And let's see, I'm based in New Mexico. And so a fun fact based off of yours, Courtney, is that here in New Mexico, at least, we say Coke for basically everything. So some people in the States will say soda, some people will say pop, but here in the Southwest, we say Coke. So that's my fun fact.
Nice. Yeah. No, I didn't know that. I mean, I knew there were different names for it, but yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. So I guess I will, what is it? Cheryl, is that you? You're next.
Yeah. Thanks, Anita. Hi, everyone. My name is Cheryl. I'm a product engineer in the developer experience team. I am based in Redlands, California. My fun fact is I love doing puzzles. Every time I finish one, I would glue it together, and then I would find a cheap frame that fits the puzzle at a thrift store, and then I hang it on my wall. So Raul, maybe for your next project, you can make me a 3D puzzle. Yeah.
Count on it.
Yeah. Now I will hand it over to my colleague, Mark.
Thanks, Cheryl. Yeah, so my name is Mark Torrey. I work on the developer experience team as well. I'm currently in Gastonia, North Carolina. And my fun fact through some quick Googling was that today in history, in 1963, was the premiere of the first James Bond film.
Dr. No.
Yeah, Dr. No. Nice. Yeah. So with that, awesome. I think, is it Kevin next? Go to pass it on to Kevin.
Sure. All right. Hey, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. My name is Kevin Gonzago. I'm on the developer experience team as well. I'm based out of Charlotte, North Carolina, temporarily in the San Francisco Bay Area for a bit. Fun fact, and actually this was shared with me early this morning from my mom. When placed in water, apparently a lemon floats while a lime sinks. Did y'all know
Weird.
That? I know.
What? Huh. Okay.
Odd fact, but yes, it actually is pretty true. So in any case, I'll just hand it off to Luis.
Hello, guys. Yes, so my name is Luis. I am a product engineer working for the ArcGIS Maps SDK's development products. I am currently in Edinburgh, Scotland, but I am from Puerto Rico. And my current fun fact is I play the Irish flute for the University of Edinburgh Composers Orchestra. But what's fun about it is that we exclusively play student compositions. So it keeps the audience very interested. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Did you say the Irish flute?
The Irish flute, yeah, it's different from the silver one, yeah.
Okay, yeah, because I play the silver one, so I've never
Cool.
heard the Irish one. That's really cool. Huh. Awesome. Great. Well, we've all introduced ourselves now. Again, thank you guys so much for joining. Let's see, what do we have? Let's do a few shout outs. We've got someone from Baltimore. That's Jack. We've got Leon from Austin. We've got, let's see, John from Washington, D.C., so close by to me. Yeah, we've got people all over. So yeah, again, thanks for joining. And we're going to go ahead and kick things off. So to start, we are going to have Lewis show us some game engines updates and some other exciting new things with 3D tiles. So, Lewis, I will hand it off to you.
Of course. Thank you, Courtney. All right, so the RGS Maps SDKs for game engines includes 2 SDKs delivered as plugins for industry-leading game engines, Unity and Unreal Engine. In the latest release of the RGS Maps SDKs for game engines version 2.0, we've added support for 3D tiles from online services and also offline tile sets, expanding the options for integrating 3D geospatial data into your applications. So I'll be demonstrating how to add an Esri hosted 3D tiles layer using the RGS Maps SDK for Unreal Engine, which hopefully is what you can see on screen right now, taking advantage of the low-code, no-code user experience integrated within the game engine editors. For more experienced developers, there is a comprehensive set of developer components and APIs to access the full range of capabilities. So right now on screen, you can see a modified version of one of our plugin sample levels, which has been already configured for visualizing data for an extent of the city of Boston, USA. The data includes the ArcGIS imagery base map along with terrain 3D elevation data. Now, Boston is practically at sea level. It's about 10 meters above sea level. So what you're seeing right now is practically a flat map. So let's go ahead and add some 3D geospatial data to the map. The first thing I'm going to do is to activate the ArcGIS Maps SDK mode, which enables me to create multiple maps or update existing ones already in the scene. To update the existing map, I'm going to select it from the outliner. Now that the map is selected, you can see that the UI has updated, and I can click on the Layers tab to add the 3D tiles layer. Now I'm going to choose the 3D tiles layer type from the drop-down menu. I'm going to paste the data service URL, which can be found in ArcGIS Online. I'm going to give the layer a name, let's say Boston, sounds appropriate. Now I'm going to click Add. I've already configured an API key for this level, but more information about API keys can be found in the documentation website. So the layer is now added, and data is correctly positioned both horizontally and vertically. So how do I know this, right? So you can do a very quick visual test and check for horizontal shifts or vertical gaps between your data. And as I get closer and I toggle the visibility of the layer, this all looks very good to me. Cool. Now, a new feature of the RGS Maps SDK for game engines is the ability to choose a coordinate system for your map through the user interface. Going back to the Map tab, you can see that I've already set the coordinate systems to Web Mercator for using RGS base maps and EGM96 for relatively accurate vertical positions of the data. Now, I say relatively because there are other coordinate systems that can provide better accuracy. Now, after setting up the scene, you can do spatial analyses, add more data layers, create a game application based in Boston, and other cool things like mesh modifications, and also even create an overview map for easier navigation. Now, if you'd like to know more about 3D tiles or how to create applications using the RGS Maps SDKs for game engines, our documentation websites have everything you need to get started. So let's take a quick look at the documentation website for the RGS Maps SDK for Unity over here. And this is the overview page, which has general information as well as a link to the Esri community website where you can ask questions, get involved, and also provide feedback, which is very important for us. Now, on the top left, you can see other sections like how to get started. That includes instructions on how to create your free ArcGIS account, installation and setup, tutorials and samples, as well as other sections with information for particular functionalities and features. For example, our supported data layers, such as 3D tiles. And here you can find more information. As well as our documentation, we also have a series of blog posts in the ArcGIS blog website. Some of these include how to create spatially accurate apps with the ArcGIS Maps SDKs for game engines, a guide for coordinate reference systems for game developers, creating cinematic scenes using the ArcGIS Maps SDK from Real Engine, and also how to use Google photorealistic 3D tiles, which is also available in the ArcGIS Maps SDKs for game engines. Very, very cool things. Now, that's all I have for you guys. Thank you so much for your time. And now I will pass it on to Courtney.
Awesome. Thank you, Lewis. That was great. Yeah, great demonstrations of 3D tiles and our game engines. So it looks like we do have one question in the chat. And it says, wonder if you could export a 3D tile to 3D print.
To 3D
Which
print.
that might be, maybe is that geared more towards Raul?
Yeah. Well, I have not tried it. I mean, it sounds very cool to do that, the ability to do that, yeah.
It does, yeah, that would be interesting. Maybe something to explore potentially in the future.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Great. Cool. Okay. Well, again, don't hesitate to put your questions in the chat for any of our presenters. We will answer them throughout the stream. Thank you, Lewis. We're going to go ahead and go on to our next presenter, which is going to be Anita. Oh, Raul, sorry.
I was going to say that yes, you can print it. I have been trying using Blender, so you can do the process. If anyone is interested, ping me on any social media. I will give you more instructions on how you can print those 3D layers.
Okay, that's awesome to know. Wow.
Awesome.
Cool. All right, Anita. Yeah, Anita's going to show us some updates with legacy API keys and REST.js updates. So over to you.
All right. Cool. Thanks, Courtney. So yes, the content that I'm going to cover is primarily focused on those of you who have created API keys prior to June of 2024. And this is because in June of last year, we made some pretty significant changes to how developers create and manage credentials to access our GIS services. And the primary focus of these updates were around API keys, making them more functional, performant, and secure by adding features such as more permission granularity. So if you created an API key before June of 2024, these are now referred to as legacy API keys. And when we enacted these changes, they entered mature support. So starting next month, these legacy API keys will be in extended support. And then after May of 2026, your legacy API keys will no longer function to access our GIS services. And then to be really clear about this only applies to those API keys that were created before June of 2024. So what does that mean for you? If you haven't already, we really encourage you to upgrade your API keys, rather update them to the new API key credentials. And you can find more information about this in the API key legacy retirement page in the security and authentication guide. And this is where we really go through the retirement timeline and then also the advantages of using API key credentials. For example, in your legacy API keys, there were some limits on the amount of API keys you could create, in this case, 100 keys. But now with the new API key credentials, there is no limit. Next, in the legacy API keys, you were only really able to access our GIS location services being services such as geocoding, routing, places, and others. But now with the new API key credentials, you not only have access to location services, but also to the spatial analysis service and also the portal service, and you can perform portal operations with your API key credential. Next, the item access privileges. Before, with your legacy API keys, you were only able to access items if you had an ArcGIS location platform account. But now with the new API key credentials, this is supported for all account types. That means location platform, online, and enterprise 11.4 or above. Now, in terms of security, we did make some enhancements to the API key credentials. Before, with your legacy API key, you weren't able to set an API key expiration date or rotate your key. But now with the new credentials, we do support API key rotation with up to 2 API keys per credential. And you're able to set an expiration date for up to 1 year as a duration. That's a lot of information. And before I forget, the major difference is that enterprise support. Before, ArcGIS enterprise users weren't able to use API keys. And now with the new API key credentials, if you have enterprise 11.4 or higher, you can use API key credentials with your ArcGIS enterprise services. That's a lot of information. And if you have questions about how to switch to these new API key credentials, we did create new tutorials, such as the Update to API Key Credentials tutorial, which steps you through a more step-by-step process on how to get a new credential. We also have a new REST.js tutorial, and for that, I'll have Cheryl talk about those more. So that's all I have for me. So yeah, it's either Courtney or Cheryl.
Awesome. Yeah. No, that's great. It sounds like there's a lot of new, exciting updates for our API key support. That is really exciting to hear about enterprise developers being able to use them now too. So that's great. It looks like we do have a couple of questions in the chat before we move on. So we have, first, are there plans to allow more than 100 items per credential?
I do not know the answer for that, unfortunately. Yeah, unless Raul or anyone else. Yeah.
We can certainly get back to, we can certainly answer that
Definitely.
later after the stream, once we confirm with someone. Great.
For sure.
Can we remove key expiration?
No, you can't, just because that is a new security feature, and that's really to protect you and how you manage your API keys.
Right, exactly. Can I use API keys as a proxy instead of named user for a custom JS API app?
That is also a good question, and I don't know the answer to that, but Mark, if you know, or Cheryl, then yeah, I'd be happy to have them answer that as well. Or we can answer it later as well.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we'll get back to that one in the chat later. Yeah, or maybe Cheryl or Mark later. So we'll see. Great. And then it looks like someone says, "Excellent, Anita. You can now use the API key in Enterprise 11.4. Thanks."
Definitely.
Great.
Awesome.
Cool. All right. So yeah, we're going to go ahead and go to Cheryl. Thank you, Anita. And Cheryl is going to talk about, REST.js updates and some more authentication stuff. So Cheryl, take it away.
Thank you, Courtney. All right, let's continue with some more exciting updates on the API key front. We have heard many of you ask how to create API keys programmatically, and we are so happy to announce that the tutorial for that is finally here. You can now learn how to generate API keys programmatically using ArcGIS REST.js, and we have also added a companion tutorial that shows you how to rotate API keys programmatically. So you do not need to worry about missing API key expiration dates that can disrupt your app from running. Both tutorials come with complete downloadable code solutions to help you get started right away. And still on the topic of authentication, we have also improved all tutorials in our open source developer guides, such as Esri Leaflet, MapLibra, OpenLayers, and CCM.js to support 2 authentication methods, API key authentication and user authentication. If you are new to ArcGIS and location services, API key authentication is your best bet. But if you want your app to remain private and maintain control over who can access it, user authentication is the way to go. So how do you check that out? Well, just visit any tutorials in our open source developer guides and select the type of authentication that suits your needs. And then the instructions and code examples will update automatically. To top it all off, all of our tutorials include code solutions for both types of authentication so that you can easily see the full code and run the app on your own machine. Yeah, and that's all from me. Now I will hand it back to Courtney.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you, Cheryl. That was great. Yeah, it's nice to see that ability to see the two different types of authentication, see how you can implement those in your app right away. I know that was a great addition to our documentation. So thank you for showing all of that.
Yeah, thank you.
Great. All right. So doesn't look like we have any more questions at the moment. So thank you, Cheryl. We're going to go ahead and go on to Mark, who is going to give us some Postman updates. All right, Mark.
Great. Thanks, Cheryl. Thanks, Courtney. Yeah, so I'm going to give everyone a quick overview of some recent updates we've made to our public Postman collection. So for those who might not be aware, Postman is an all-in-one API platform that enables developers and teams to design, test, document, and collaborate on APIs. The Esri developer experience team has had hosted workspaces in Postman for several years, and they feature pre-configured API requests, which let you interact with ArcGIS services, test the endpoints, and learn how to integrate spatial workflows and data into your own applications, all without writing any code. So some of the recent updates that we've made include we've consolidated the workspace into a single collection so that you only need to create a single fork to get up and running in your own Postman environment. Previously, I think we had 8 or 9 collections, and those each required a fork, a separate fork to be created. We've reorganized the request into corresponding ArcGIS service category folders so that they're easier and quicker to find. We've added documentation and links to each folder and request. So that makes it a little bit easier to move between the guides and the collection with a little less friction. We've reduced the number of global variables needed to kind of get off and running so that, the process of running the request is very easy right off the bat. And then we've added a number of pre and post request scripts that simplify running each of the examples. So we're hoping these changes will make it easier for you, the developer, to access, test, and include ArcGIS services in your applications. But kind of with all that said, I thought we could take a quick kind of spin around the collection, and with that getting started, how do we get to this collection? Well, the easiest and most direct way is just to go to postman.com, Esri Devs, ArcGIS, Esri ArcGIS services, and that'll bring you to the main page. And then if you click on the getting started page, some of the documentation that we've added, right, is some prerequisites that are needed before running the request. So you'll need an ArcGIS account, a free Postman account, and then a little bit about how to obtain an access token based on what type of authentication you want to use. And so you'll see in the getting started folder, we have some sample requests for actually generating a token from my credentials here. So generate token, I'm just using a username and password, but if you had your API key, you could do that. And some of those scripts that we were talking about, all right, so each time this request runs, we're going to stick that access token in a global environment variable here, right, so that all of the subsequent requests that we have will use that token. And so it's kind of a one trick pony, right? Once I have an access token, then I can come in to say geocode and address, send that request, and I get the response back from the service. Right? I can see maybe we want to tweak where it's going. Right. And that'll give us the candidates for that. So one of the other kind of little Easter eggs I wanted to show is how to access the collection is in the actual developer guide. Say if we went to geocoding, say geocode addresses, and looked at the URL request, there is a Postman note kind of here at the top of the page that will take you to that overview collection page. All right, so back to the get started. Or if we go down and look at some of the code examples in the REST API, down here in the right-hand corner, there's a small little run in Postman link. And if we open up that, that will take us directly to that specific request that we can then run. Okay. So as I said, kind of, getting started is probably the best place to start. Get the accounts, and then the steps, right, to run this in your own under your own Postman sandbox would be to fork the collection. And so that's just as easy as coming over and saying fork it, and that'll put it in, create a fork of it in your workspace or Postman environment, and you can then run all the requests once you've set your authentication up and set the token through the script. Some of the other interesting things, if we look at, say, like optimized routing, right? Routing can sometimes be an intense service to work with. Can be a lot of parameters. So in this case, right, we can just add in an array of stop points. We can send that request and we get the response back. All right. So these routes, these stops with these directions. All right. And that's all well and good. But what if we wanted to visualize actually what it was like? One of those post request scripts will actually visualize the response for us so we can kind of look at it and see if it's returning what we want. And we can see, okay, yeah, May 8th. Yeah, that sounds right. And we do that through these post response scripts. And that's just a section of code that runs after the request is finished. We pass in the response from the service and use the JavaScript Maps SDK to render those in this visualization section. Let's see. Some other, just to show some requests from each of the categories. If you wanted to investigate something from your portal, right, again, we just give it an item ID and we can get the data for that item. In this case, a web map. And then also showing job requests. So job requests, right, would be something that needs to run. We basically send the request to the server, right, and let the server do the processing and then get notified when it's done. So in this case, like if we wanted to run a buffer jobs request, right, we could send that to our analysis service, right, and we can see that it's been submitted. For those of you that use kind of used to GP tools and such, this is the same analogous to that. And then the process, we can kind of pull the server to see if it's still executing. And while that's running, I just want to mention that, and we would like to encourage everybody to take a look at all the, you can see we've got quite a few requests in the collection. To come in, there's a comments section in the right-hand sidebar of each request in Postman, and you can add your comment and we'll be notified. Or alternatively, just want to mention in each of the guide pages, there's the feedback widget that we can be notified to as well. So please, give the collection a whirl, create a fork in your guide, and happy coding and or testing, should I say. Let's see, where's my status? Let's just make sure it finished. All right. Okay, so we can see this is the job completed. We got back a new feature service from that, and if we send another request to get the value, we can then see, okay, what's that look like? And our JavaScript code runs and we can see our buffers there. So yeah, so that's the quick and dirty updates from the Esri Devs Postman collection.
Wow.
So with that.
Oh my goodness, Mark. That was amazing. There's a lot of that I haven't seen yet with all those updates.
Oh, really?
I mean, yeah, it's just like, so just the fact that it's all one fork, that's great. The embedded links on the dev site, like that's cool too, because it takes you exactly to where, you know, you can go test out what you're looking at on the doc site. And then the visualizer thing, that was really impressive too, because I'm used to using it mostly with just like the raw JSON response when we're getting back. But that was neat. Yeah.
Yeah, it helps. It like, and once you've kind of done one visualization, and you can just copy and paste it, you know, and we're going to slowly try to add it to all the requests where it's appropriate. And also the documentation, we've added links back to the developer guide. So if you're in the guide, see a request and want to run it in Postman, then you can get back to where you were in the developer guide relatively easily, just kind of through the overview or the documentation.
Nice. Great tips. Yeah. So it looks like we do have a couple questions.
Okay.
So the first one from Jason says, any tips on integrating this workspace with the Postman extension in VS Code?
Yeah, definitely. There's a VS Code extension, a Postman extension, and it'll bring the collection right in. It basically looks exactly like this on the website, but it's just in Visual Studio Code. It's actually really nice in VS Code as well. So yeah, you just log into Postman and it'll grab whatever workspace or collection you want, and then you can run it from there, just like on the website or on the desktop app. So.
Great, straightforward. I like it. All right, and one more from Brad. So where are the X and Y coordinates coming from? Is that all from the API?
So like the depends on the request. Like the geocode requests, those are ones that I just entered into the query parameters. You know, so if I had for the stops, for the routing stops, those are ones I just generated. But you could potentially use an existing feature layer or other file to bring those in. So it's pretty flexible where you get the coordinates from to enter.
Nice. That's great.
But yeah, and then the result, right? The results that come back will have geometry if you ask for it. Those would be returned from the service.
Perfect. Sounds good. Well, again, thank you so much, Mark. That was great. I know Postman is a very popular tool to be used by many developers, so it's fantastic to see all of those updates.
Cool.
All right, so we are going to go on to Kevin now, and Kevin is going to be showing us some Experience Builder updates. So let's see what you got, Kevin.
All right, thanks, Courtney. So I really want to take this time to talk about the component libraries within the ArcGIS Experience Builder Developer Edition. We fielded quite a lot of questions at this past Developer and Technology Summit in terms of which component library should I go with? Is it the GIMU that comes along with the developer experience, or is it Calcite and whatnot? So what I'm going to be sharing is primarily centered on the beginner to intermediate developers that really want to dive into Experience Builder and start creating their custom widgets and whatnot. So what you see in front of you is a page that was just recently added to our Loca Noca developer guide. And it really highlights the GIMU component and how to go about using it within your custom widget. So to kind of dive into GIMU itself is that it's really the de facto component library that comes along with the developer edition. So if you really want to start creating your widget and if you're relatively new to Experience Builder, the suggestion would be to start using GIMU as your component library. because it has all the bells and whistles with any type of components that it offers, like a select or a button and so on and so forth, right? So this page itself really highlights the use of it, how to go about using it, like setting up your environment, creating the custom widget, and then finally adding your UI components. So I'm just going to simply scroll down to the code itself. And as you can see, all you have to do is basically import the GNU UI, and you are presented with your button and color pickers for you to start coding against, right? Now, the one thing that I really want to highlight here on this page itself is the best practices. So I'm going to scroll down to a couple things here, how you can actually dynamically create your own CSS and how you can inject that into your code within your widget itself. But the one thing that I really want to highlight here is the actual GNU UI storybook. I'm going to click over to this tab here. So essentially, it's just like a playground area for developers to see what's available through the component library, the GNU component library. So essentially, you have the components, and it also offers icons, right? And I'm sure previous conferences, folks have really highlighted this, but I just want to really stress that these are some of the components that are offered to you from the GNU library. And it also highlights the fact that you can click on one of them, for example, the SQL expression builder, which is a much more advanced component, but it does allow you to show a SQL expression builder, right? Object ID equals 1 and so on and so forth. You can start adding clauses to it, even a clause set. But the really cool part about this is that you click the show code and it gives you the actual code that drives this, how to go about using this component. And you can simply copy and paste into your VS Code, and off and running you go with your coding, right? So essentially, it's a nice little playground. Kick the tires with a couple of components. Understand how it behaves, the patterns, the events, and so on and so forth. So I highly suggest new developers to experienced builders start using this storybook. Now, moving on to Calcite. Now, there's a lot of things that folks at the this past summit, Developer and Technology Summit, is that they are very, very interested in using Calcite within a custom widget in Experience Builder. So we decided to create a page to really highlight Calcite within the Experience Builder chapter of the Low Code, No Code guide. And it kind of goes through the nuances of Calcite, and it's basically the component library that is used throughout all the ArcGIS clients, right? So like the map viewer and even JavaScript uses a lot of their samples. Calcite is embedded within a lot of their samples. And if you go to the developer arcgis.com, a lot of our samplers do utilize Calcite as well. So I know developers are very interested in using Calcite, and this page really highlights the uses of it, how you set it up, creating a custom widget within it, and how do you actually import Calcite into your custom widget, right? So it's simply that particular line that allows you to use a Calcite button within your custom widget. Now, it also kind of goes through the latest version that comes along with Developer Edition. As you know, Calcite does release I believe, every 2 months. So you can kind of tell that the synchronization between the release of Developer Edition, which is 3 times a year, with Calcite, so it can get out of sync. So this last part here is, how do you go about adding the latest and greatest Calcite release with a particular Developer Edition, right? So that allows you to not only upgrade your Calcite references, it also allows you to use some of the latest and greatest that comes from that particular release of Calcite. Now, the one thing to note here is that If Developer Edition, it does come along with a particular version of Calcite. So it's completely optimized for that release itself, right? So if your widget and if you do develop your custom widget and you realize that there's a new release of Calcite, these steps right here outlines how you go about referencing the latest release of Calcite. But the one thing to note here is that you may have to take into account some of the issues that may arise by referencing the latest and greatest from Calcite releases. So just know that that's what you have to do, is that just kind of account for that, right? Because again, I just want to stress the Developer Edition, each release is optimized to a particular release of Calcite. So now I mentioned with GMU UI, the GMU component library does have a storybook area for you to kick tires with these components. And Calcite also has that same kind of like a sandbox area for you to start kind of poking around on some of the components that they offer too. So like, for example, what we're seeing right now is just a simple select component, right? So what I love about this is that this area itself, this little sample area, kind of gives you the actual markup of how you go about using a select and how you go about creating options within that, right? And also if you select, you click on this dropdown, it gives you additional samples on, let's say if you want to select with labels, right? Or even groupings within the select itself. As you can kind of tell, like once I start clicking more samples, this part of the code itself is updated, allowing you to select all and copy it into your code itself, right? So again, it's a really cool area, little sandbox area for you to just kind of kick the tires on these components. And it's definitely a great way to learn what's available in the Calcite component library. So now moving on to, now that you know about these component libraries, so within GitHub, the Experience Builder team also has a repo with all their samples, right? So samples in terms of some of the widgets, like some of the widgets that you can use as a baseline to build upon it, some examples on how to use feature layers within a custom widget, and so on and so forth, right? But the one thing that I really want to highlight here are the Calcite components samples that the team has created. So what we see here is essentially just a simple code highlighting how to go about bringing in the button, icon, and slider from Calcite, and simply just importing from the Calcite components. And as you see, lines 13, 14, 15, and 16 essentially just basically shows you how to go about using those components. Now, also, one cool thing about this is that there is a sample on Calcite components on how to go about using the arcade editor, right? So a lot of things that people are really want to know is like whether or not you can use arcade in Experience Builder. It's part of the whole Calcite reference in terms of injecting your own arcade code and within using this component that's going to be part of your widget. So this is a simple way of injecting a little bit of arcade into a custom widget, and that is part of the component itself. So another good reference resource for you to kind of understand how to use Calcite within a widget in Experience Builder Developer Edition, and which kind of takes me on to my last point here is that, okay, so given I have GMU, I have Calcite, as a new developer with Developer Edition, which one should I go with, right? Really, it comes down to your requirements, right? If you're new to widget development, we highly suggest you to start using GMU UI. It is it is fully integrated into the developer edition. It's a relatively low learning curve, so it's basically it's quite easy to start using that component library. Now, let's say if you hit a snag in some of the limitation of the components, or if you really want to start using Calcite, right? The developer edition is tightly coupled to a specific version of Calcite. So realize that you can bring in Calcite and also start banging away at the code with it, but you also have to handle additional behaviors that is not part of the Calcite components, that isn't really dialed into the developer edition itself. Like, for example, you can change different themes in developer edition, right? Different themes, different templates, so on and so forth, right? Different colors. So with that, GIMU itself is really, when you change a theme, the GIMU components understand that, okay, a theme has been changed. I'm going to go ahead and process it appropriately. While Calcite, you're going to have to accommodate for that a theme change, right? So that's the biggest thing that you have to also kind of take into account. Just these different nuances between these component libraries. You have to take the additional step to really accommodate for the injection of Calcite into your custom widget. So learning curve is pretty moderate when you want to start using Calcite within in a custom widget. Accessibility, as we all know that the GIMU UI components are completely accessible, and it's all focused around the builder itself. While Calcite, their main focus is also strong accessibility within these components. Integration, the GIMU UI is fully integrated into Experience Builder. Calcite, certain versions are, so like I mentioned, you have to take the additional steps to really fully, tightly couple Calcite within your custom widget. So with that, I think I covered majority of what was introduced to the chapter of Loco Noco Developer Guide addressing GIMU and Calcite components. I'll just hand it back to Courtney now.
Great. Awesome. Thank you, Kevin. Yeah, that was a lot of good tips and tricks for Experience Builder developers, and even ones that aren't, potentially, how to get started. Actually, we put a poll in the chat. It looks like the question was, have you used ArcGIS Experience Builder? And 56% said yes, and 23% said not yet, but I plan to. So I think you've convinced some people. So some great information. We do have a few questions.
Sure.
So go ahead and answer those. So the first one is from Jason. So if you stick with GIMU components, there will be fewer potential breaking changes between Experience Builder versions than using Calcite components? Question mark.
That is correct, right? So GIMU, again, it's the primary component library for your widget development. And if you're new to just development in Experience Builder as a whole, we, again, just want to stress this, we encourage you to start using GIMU. Now, I mentioned before, there's limitations in terms of if you do hit certain limitations, or if you want to, I wouldn't say modernize your user experience with your widgets, you can also upgrade to start using Calcite. So yeah, so when you do, let's see, when you do download the latest, greatest developer edition, you do get the latest GIMU component, and also you are getting a version of Calcite that's optimized to developer edition. Right. So the one thing that I do want to highlight here is that, let's say if you do want to start using the newest version of Calcite that is not part of the developer edition, so you will have to accommodate for additional behaviors that are new to that release of Calcite that weren't really optimized within the developer edition. So synchronization can be out of sync between Calcite and Developer Edition, so you just have to be aware of that.
Fair enough. Makes sense. Great. All right. Next question. So just want to make sure I understand, is Calcite a framework or a styling tool?
So Calcite is a component library where you are using these components to build a UI for a widget, right? So it has some of the stylings that comes automatic with their components. That's part of the library itself, right? So I wouldn't necessarily call it a framework, right? Experience Builder is a framework, and it also it's shipped along with the GMU component library, which you can use to create your UI for a theme or a custom widget.
Nice. Yeah.
I hope that answers that question.
Yeah. Yeah, the full name is Calcite Design System. So it's,
Right.
A collection of design and development resources, I guess you could say. Yeah, and exactly, specifically to Experience Builder. We got all the components and all that to go with it. So great. All right. What's the advantage of leveraging Arcade versus just using TypeScript?
Okay, so that is a pretty broad question. So I'm trying to see how I can properly answer that question. So TypeScript is the language that you use to create widgets, right? And as we know, Arcade is a scripted language that can be used not only in the map viewer or feature layer. You can embed that, and it's primarily used for styling, for injecting logic in terms of conditional logic to show certain things based upon other conditions, right? Arcade is absolutely great at that at the presentation level. So like pop-ups. Also, so it's maybe I need further context with that question, but Arcade isn't used to build a widget. You use TypeScript to create a widget in an Experience Builder. And if you want to bring in a web map that is configured to show various pop-ups, that's where Arcade is key for that type of configuration.
Fair enough. Sounds good. Yeah. Yeah. And it looks like we had another participant in the audience kind of give some more context to it too. So I think we've answered Jason's question. Thank you very much, Kevin. Yeah.
Sure.
Great. Yeah. So that looks like all the questions we have about this section here. So thank you, Kevin. We're going to go ahead and go on to Raul, who's going to show some cool new resources and other things that have been updates within the last, almost year for Esri developers. So let's check it out, Raul.
Okay, so let me see if I can share my screen. Okay. I guess you are seeing it, right?
Looks good.
Perfect. So yeah, I wanted to start by saying that at the end of next week, if I remember correctly, it's May 16th, we will be publishing under Esri video, which you can access under mediaspace.esri.com, the Developer Summit and Technology Summit, Developer and Technology Summit videos from this year. So you will have to go to conferences. We'll have to, make a minor update to this tab. But here at the bottom, today you can see already the plenary videos, some of the other videos that were published, but we will be publishing more than 140 hours of video. So keep an eye on that. I also want to let you know that we, same way we did last year, we are going to create playlists for each of the main products to help you to better explore and watch the videos that has been published. We will be linking where you can find the source code of the demos. So highly encourage you to check these videos because there is a huge amount of great content that is going to be published. In addition to that, in case anyone didn't notice, we are trying to push all the Developer and Technology Summit videos to YouTube. And especially we are taking some time to make sure that each of the videos that are going to YouTube, in addition to the video itself, we are putting time on optimizing them for your watching experience. We are adding the timestamps here so you can browse the chapter quickly. We are trying to add the resources, the slides. So let us know if there are any specific videos you want to see published sooner. We will hear all your requests. So leave a comment on the video after the live stream today. The second thing I wanted to show you is a new blog that I would say it's new. We haven't promoted or announced it like too much yet because we are still working with some authors within the company. But it's the Esri software engineering blog. You can see the link up here. I'm going to enable give me 1 second, the caption, so you can see the URL there. So here we are trying to publish a little bit of content about how we work behind the scenes in terms of how we build software, how we as a company that has a ton of engineers, more than 1,000 of them, how we ship, how we test our software, which are the tools that we build and we put out there. We are working on some of the open source tools that we built for our internal testing and we have released to GitHub. We are writing articles about those tools, why we build them on the first place. We are explaining how we write our docs for developers, how we are implementing some features on our products, like the JavaScript SDK in here. So I just wanted to let you know that that's there. I encourage you to read this first blog that was kind of the first one explaining what can you expect from this new blog. And yeah, of course, all the other blog articles, there are a lot of great content in here. But just for you to know, you cannot expect on this blog to learn how to use our developer tools. It's more about the curiosity you might have about how we build and ship things. Some of our cultural aspects too, internally within our engineering teams. So trying to get more articles soon and make a bigger announcement. And lastly, I want to show a pet project I did recently. It's hosted right now on my own personal site, but it's a map where I'm trying to compile all the different events our engineering teams are attending, or where you can find some people from Esri engineering teams across the world. I'm sure I'm still missing some of them. There are a few conferences like FOSS4G, for example, that we are planning to attend, but I haven't added yet because I'm waiting for confirmation. But the most important thing I wanted to tell you is that if you think we should be at any other conference that you don't find in here, I encourage you to let us know which conference you think we should be and why, so we can properly review it and consider. Hopefully we can meet on some of those soon. And I think that's mainly it. So let me get Courtney back to the screen.
Great. Yeah, that's awesome. So just kind of briefly recapping what you went through there. Media space, that is a great platform that a lot of people don't know that exist. So there's so many different videos, like Raul said. Next week we'll have the Developer and Technology Summit videos from this year being placed on that site, and so many other things, like you said. So great little kind of hidden gem. Yeah, and then the software engineering blog, very exciting. Yeah, hope to get more articles soon. And then, like Raul said, we, himself and me and plenty of other engineers are traveling to these different places throughout the world. So we'd love to meet you, and yeah, just let us know what conferences you think we should show up at.
Yeah.
Raul, your next one is, sorry, what's your next one?
My next conference is going to be Code Motion in Madrid in a couple of weeks. So I'm trying to keep it close to me, as you can see, based in Spain. Yeah, that's another thing we are trying to do, is encourage people to go to local events, travel when needed. But as many people knows, we have a lot of engineers across the world on different offices, so we are trying to encourage local employees to go to those.
Yeah,
talking
for sure.
about how to optimize data, geospatial data map visualization with large data sets. That's going to be the topic of my next conference.
Great. Yeah. Well, if you live in or near that conference in Spain, then definitely go check it out. You can meet Raul.
Sure.
Great.
Okay, Courtney.
All right. So it looks like we don't have any questions. So we are down to me presenting a couple little small things real quick. Let me go ahead and get my screen shared here. Let's see. So what I'm going to talk about first is the fact that we are, well, speaking of events, we have at Esri UC this year, we have our Developer Summit, which is going to be on Wednesday, July 16th from 8:30 a.m. to 11 a.m. to start. And then afterwards, so that'll be kind of like your opening sessions here. So you've got a part 1 and part 2. And then afterwards, you will have some other sessions that are dedicated to 2 being JavaScript SDK and 1 being our experience builder. So great experience to have if you are going to be attending UC. So all registered UC attendees will be able to attend with no extra cost, but you do need to be signed up for the main conference. So do be sure also to make your reservation, like it says here. So several of us will be there at UC. Some of us will be participating in this day, and a lot of us will be at the booth area in the showcase. And the other thing, again, speaking of events, is, of course, if you're watching right now, you already know about our YouTube channel. Our next live stream event that we have planned is going to be on July 8th, and it is going to be our JavaScript SDK's 4.33 release. So that is going to be, like I said, July 8th, and we do those every release or every 2 releases or so. So it's a great time to ask the JavaScript engineers all of your questions and learn about all the new exciting updates. And with that, I believe we are finished. So we are going to go ahead and wrap it up and bring everyone back on screen here. Let's bring everyone back. Thank you so much to Louis, Anita, Cheryl, Mark, Kevin, Raul. We had a lot of fun with you guys. And yeah, if you have any other questions, we'll definitely be sure to address them in the comments afterwards or in the video description. Be sure to just take a look at that later. Any other final comments, anyone?
Thank you, Courtney.
No, thank you.
Everyone for attending.
Perfect. Great. Well, have a great day, everyone. Thanks.
All right.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.